huge privilege for me to see you all and to have this opportunity to talk with you. You guys have done something very, very remarkable for me and my family.
Look, we certainly appreciate that. You know, this is not unlike a lot of projects at Paverart where, you know, you might be talking to Mike or you might be talking to me or Brian, and then at some point chaos ensues, right? When we go to the design process. So I was actually thrilled with this one. Brian's always the best one to get involved with anything design.
It was
I
awesome.
always say, if I've got to get involved in details, I'm going to find a way to screw it up. Brian, on the other hand, does a great job of staying with it and doing revisions. And so one of the challenges we have as a small business is, you know, how do we do all the work and understand when I got to throw it over the wall to Brian, let him take over. And so, but anyway, from my vantage point, it looks like there was a lot of, how many revisions do you think you guys went through?
You know, we went through.
As far as color, a lot, but the
Yeah.
revisions started as a completely different compass rose.
Yeah.
It kind of morphed its way into what we ended up with. There wasn't a lot of versions until we got to that one, but colors is where it took longer to nail it down.
Yeah, we
ended up, right?
That is the final, and Brian had colored that as one of the finalists. I think we had 8 finalists that he sent me, just a random number of colors, and this one was always there, but we had to go through our own process here at home, you know, what color matched perfectly with all the other colors, so that the whole thing was, you know, sort of synergistic. Right. And what worked for me, especially in this process, is Brian's incredible patience. He's like, yeah, we'll do another color. We'll try this, we'll try that. But he had this nailed in early once we finalized the design. And the design was equally collaborative. I mean, I just can't give enough credit for all of you, but Brian's patience and his understanding that I was after something different and unique and very, very personal. And you know, a lot of companies might not have put up with all the things that I was after. I could see it in my head, but not knowing how you guys do work and what was possible. But in the end, we got it all in there. I mean, it was just a really rewarding process, especially with this center band. Originally, we had another rope in there, and it occurred to me one day that could be a place where I could fit every single place that I had been stationed at, because there's 8 segments and I had 8 assignments. So anyway,
I was going to ask you, Joe, didn't you? We didn't really engage you on engraving until like maybe midway through. I think Brian might have mentioned that midway through, right? You were going to do a bronze insert or something.
Originally, I always wanted a Coast Guard design or emblem of some kind. We looked at 2 here with Brian. One was the Coast Guard logo and the other was the insignia for my senior chief rank. And you know, I didn't know that you could do engraving, and so originally I was going through other sources to look for a bronze plaque. I wanted what you guys created there, which was an exact replication of the Coast Guard logo. I mean, that for me was key. I didn't want something that looked like the Coast Guard logo or was a rendering of. I wanted the, you know, Coast Guard represented professionally and correctly. And so one day Brian said, hey, you know, we do engraving also. And I'm like, cool. Now I can give this to you guys all in one shop. I mean, it took so much uncertainty off of my hands, and it just gave me extraordinary confidence in how this was going to look and feel, and you guys nailed it.
Well, yeah, we appreciate that. I think, yeah, this looks pretty simple, right? GP Monterey, but this piece is arced, right? So the challenge with something like this, you know, we kind of have to, we view Engraving versus Paverart as 2 different businesses, although they're related. And clearly, this was not a first, yeah, we can help you with this until midway through. But the thing that we used to do on Engraving, which is how a lot of the world does, they spray paint it, right? So you engrave it, you sandblast the letters in, and then you spray paint it. And, you know, you and I both know spray paint will eventually wear down. this is what we call our eco-fill. So it's a much more durable product that we're shoving that. It's almost like when you caulk your tiles in the bathroom, you're pushing that grout in between the tiles. This is a
Okay.
similar concept, much more durable.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when you reach out and say, can you do this? I never heard, no, we can't do that. Go away. We'll send you on to somebody else. I mean, it was always like, okay, let's try this. Let's try this. Let's try that. And gosh, I couldn't say enough about that. That's how this came to be. And I give all of you guys credit, and especially Brian's patience and his understanding and, support. All of those things created this for all of us. I mean, I hope it's as meaningful to you as it is to me.
Well,
Can you guys hear me now?
we can hear you.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Okay. That's good. I wanted to mention one thing. When we started the business a little over 20 years ago, it was predominantly to build the compass rose part of your design. I mean, that's what this business was all about.
Yeah.
About 2 years in around 2005, we decided to get into engraving because there are certain things we can't do with Paverart because, especially when the sizes aren't large enough, and engraving would allow us to incorporate those pieces with the Paverart pieces.
Yeah.
And what turned out to be an idea to do that morphed into an engraved paper department that doesn't do hardly any of that. So this project comes along and it's like, wow, this goes back to the early days. We can incorporate engraving with a Paverart piece and get the client what they want. So it was kind of exciting. And we're fortunate to have a guy and I've seen every sandblaster come through this place for the last 20 some odd years. And the guy that we have on staff now is probably the finest sandblaster when it comes to engraving that I've ever worked with.
Cool.
Did an excellent job. If you look at your piece, all the lines for the design, for the emblem, for the letters, they're all clean and sharp. Guy does a really, really nice job. His name is Nick Bertelli. So.
And Joe.
Well, I hope he signed his name on the back or something. I mean, like when you build a building and you leave things behind.
Oh yeah, we may have to ask him to do that. So.
Cool.
And Joe, there was one piece caught my eye, and thank you for pulling together all your service pictures and kind of like a little bit of a chronology.
You bet.
Can you, and I was telling Mike this morning, I appreciate all of this, but I don't know the vernacular of the military. That one I'm intrigued. What is a quartermaster?
Well, a quartermaster is what they call a rating. So if you're an enlisted person, there's junior enlisted people like David. When he graduates, he'll be a non-rated seaman apprentice when he graduates from basic training. But a rating is a designation of your technical skill. So think of it as a job classification. In my case, a quartermaster, which doesn't exist anymore, was a operations specialist that encompassed navigation, search and rescue, meteorology, basic meteorology, signaling, with flashing lights and semaphore and all that stuff. So it's kind of a general hodgepodge, but my career, I was either spent up on the bridge navigating the cutter that I was on, through electronics, through celestial navigation, using a sextant and the stars, all that stuff. And then when I wasn't on ships, I was in search and rescue centers. I was a search and rescue specialist in my junior career, where I sent out resources to rescue people, or if we had to search for people, then I had to plan the search and allocate the resources to find that person or that object we were looking for. And then later in my career, you move up in your rating through different ranks. So my rating was quartermaster, which was my job skill. My rank was dependent on where I was in advancement. So when I retired, I was a senior chief quartermaster. So senior chief is E8 out of 9 enlisted ratings.
Yep.
And it just means that I'd been around a little while. And then when you look at those pictures of my uniform, you'll see those gold stripes on my sleeve. Each one of those represents 4 years of service.
Got
So
it.
I've got 6 stripes on my sleeve, and then you get medals and pretty stuff that you get to wear for personal awards and unit awards and things like that.
And then obviously Jarvis is the ship, correct? And then on your design,
Yeah.
so your thought process on the design is every station that you had in the military?
Yeah, so Brian and I were going through these different design elements, and it was a very creative process because, we had 3 rope bands originally. We had the one in the middle around the logo. We had one where the names are now, and then the outer band, and it became too much. The 3rd rope band in the middle was just too heavy.
Yep.
And all of a sudden it dawned on me, and looking at that, hey, there's 8 segments, and I was stationed at 8 different units. And that came about the same time that Brian may be aware that we could do engraving for the logo. And so I said, can you engrave, these names? And I mean, that's another great part about this process. It wasn't like, well, maybe we can. It was like, yeah, absolutely, we can do that. And there was no question that it was going to be as professional and sharp and everything. I mean, you guys are superb in that. So I was like, that's it, and everything that I had in my head for what I wanted to symbolize came together at that moment. And you see it there. And then it was just a matter of, okay, let's make sure that, everything is correct in terms of what it represents. So CGC stands for Coast Guard Cutter, Jarvis. In that case,
Yep.
Jarvis is the name of the ship. And then GP stands for Group Monterey, which is a group is just an organizational name, and so on and so forth.
Did you spend any time in Coronado or San Diego, perchance?
Only as part of my training team experience. I was on a training team that went to every Coast Guard floating unit on the West Coast and all the way out to Guam. Wow. And we had a tractor trailer filled with radar equipment. We would drive it. I actually had to get a truck license and drive this giant semi plastered with Coast Guard on the side of it up and down the West Coast. And we would drive to units like down in the Southern California area and plug it in for a week. And we would teach people how to navigate and how to do operations and things like that. So that was my only experience down there. Most of the time I was out at sea or in rescue centers. And one thing about this is every single assignment was coast to coast. I never stayed in one geographic area. The Jarvis was in Hawaii, then it came to California, then I was in Florida. So every assignment I moved literally coast to coast.
That's amazing.
And how long, what was your total? I mean, how long have you been in or were in?
I was a total of 25 years and some days. I had done one enlistment, got out for about 4.5 years, went back in 85, and I retired in 2003. And so I ended up with 25 years, and my pension reflects some of that, which I'm very grateful for.
Oh, terrific. Well,
yeah. And I enjoyed.
I was going to say, do you get involved now, Joe, with recruiting younger people, or?
Not at the moment, but the Coast Guard is in need of people, and they are recruiting. That's always something that is available. I have talked to people about it at time to time, but during my Coast Guard career, I actually was also on active duty, but I joined the Coast Guard Auxiliary, which is a volunteer organization. And in both of those capabilities, I used to go to schools when I lived in Virginia with all of the Coast Guard's recruiting brochures and the big stand-up advertisement. And I would meet high school students and tell them about a program at the Coast Guard Academy called the AIM program. And it's stood for Academy Introduction Mission. And I actually was responsible for a young kid in Virginia, graduated from high school, entering the Coast Guard Academy and earning a commission and becoming a Coast Guard officer. That's something that I'm very proud of,
Sure.
What
Yeah.
would you say, in your opinion, what would you say is what are some good reasons for an 18-year-old to join the Coast Guard? And some really good rock solid reasons for them to do that?
Well, many, if you want to be part of something that gives you as much responsibility as you want and can handle, and come with responsibility, learn leadership and also a trade, then the Coast Guard excels in that because it's small, 40,000 people basically in total size. So you have to do a lot. It's a multi-mission service. You could be doing search and rescue at 1 minute, oil spill response in the next, law enforcement in the middle of all that. You have to be very versatile and very good and competent in not only your skill, but in your leadership. And the Coast Guard gives you all of that. For me, it was part of being part of something meaningful. Every day I was saving lives or protecting the environment, doing something in service that was benefiting the people in the country, through the enforcement of laws and so on. With a group of people who were very smart, very dedicated, very competent, but also family. I mean, you grow up and you work with all these people over a career, and you all get to know each other.
Sure.
And there's a huge camaraderie that exists. Everybody's very proud of what they do, and rightfully so. So all of those things were true for me over every day of my service. I learned a lot of myself and how to do something well. I was rewarded for it. Not that I sought out the rewards, but they're there. If somebody wants to go in and learn a trade and also advance into the officer ranks, they can go to officer candidate school. One of the guys that I worked with in Hawaii was a junior bosun mate, boat driver, and he retired as a full-fledged commander, after 30 years. I'm very, very proud of him, and, the Coast Guard gave him that opportunity.
I don't understand. It's especially with what has been going on with 15, 16, 17, and 18-year-olds over the last 2.5 years, almost 3 years.
Yeah.
It's astounding to me that there isn't, you just sold someone joining the Coast Guard. Everything that you just said, you could have bullet pointed that and put it in a public service announcement for a minute. And
Sure.
When I heard, as Joe's speaking, I heard trade and I heard leadership. So skill and a quality that's important in life.
Yep.
When you look at the alternative to the military, it's college, right? They drill college into you for years. That's the path. And that's about the credential. That's about getting the sheepskin. So your world will get opened up into jobs that require a college education. But it's a different thing. And I've worked with veterans, Joe, and we just did a podcast, our episode number 35.
Yeah.
With a gentleman by the name of Rodney Adams. He's an 8-year Marine, and he launched a business in Oklahoma called Mr. Home Repair. And just listening to the guy, and he started out, he got his undergrad degree. Then he went into I forgot what he called it. He didn't go into the office because he got a degree. He can go into, was it officers category?
yes, he went in as an officer.
But he didn't have, but he chose not to. He went in at the basic training level. I'm saying this the wrong way, but
Yeah. No, I understand.
Anyway, the point being, the every time I've worked with probably 6 or 7 different veterans, they are cut from a different mold. At least my experience has been off the charts with veterans. That's why I got these pictures behind me. Those are my personal favorite. And I get a kick out of business owners when you ask them what their favorite product is that they make. They're politically correct. They don't say it as if it's their children, right? Mine's simple. It's the military emblems. And then number 2 is the compass article. But
Yeah.
Anyway, to your point, Mike, on, why do you, I think one's about leadership and one's about the credential. I think they've got it wrong. I mean, the value, I think, is, I'm a biased in terms of my opinion, but anyway, I'd be curious on what do you think, Joe, in terms of the recruitment effort, and are we doing enough to try and reach out to kids?
Well, I can tell you my personal experience, and maybe that can relate. We're all of a different generation than the kids we're talking about, for sure. But that's one of the reasons I was so proud to hear that one of your young kids is in basic training right now. I think that's extraordinary. And what they're going to offer him is right now just a lot of direction, right? You just have to learn how to follow orders and stuff like that. But when he's done, I mean, he literally has the world at his fingertips, and he can go on to make a career, or he can just start and learn a trade and then get out and do something with it. He could be a part of the reserves and do it part-time. I mean, there's many, many options. For me, I first became aware of it in reading a National Geographic article when I was 16 years old at school. And I opened up this article, and it had a picture of a Coast Guard captain on an icebreaker in the Great Lakes. And it was in the middle of winter, and he's sitting on the bridge with a cup of coffee, you know, just watching the ice get broken. There was a picture of a crew on one of the Midwest rivers, cutting brush away from the aids to navigation that guide the ships up and down. And there was another picture of a bunch of young men and women sitting around a fire below a lighthouse on the coast of Oregon, you know, having a beach party. And all of that appealed to me because it had a sense of purpose. You know, for me, it was a purposeful place to be, because the mission of the Coast Guard is very, very clear. It has a purpose. Everything they do is protect the environment, protect people, protect the country. And that kept me going for 25 years. I didn't have to question what I was doing or how I was doing it or the people that I was doing it with. And to go to the education point, I was able to finish a traditional undergraduate degree and a traditional graduate degree before I finished my career. And I'm very proud of that too.
Sure.
Education was a big part of what we promoted, and we did that. But you know, the path is, you get to choose what path you want to be on. You're not being hammered with, this is how to be. There's some core values that the Coast Guard instills, just like all the other services. And for the Coast Guard, that's honor, respect, devotion to duty. Very clear, very simple. And if you follow all that, if it means something to you, if it has purpose to you as a person, then it becomes easy to effectuate the organizational purpose, if that makes sense.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah. For me, it wasn't a job. It was something I enjoyed every day. I mean, I got to work outside and navigate and see the world, and I loved it every day. And you guys are now giving life to that whole career through the amazing work that you do. I mean, it's astonishing what you've accomplished for us.
Well, thank you.
Well, look, we
Yeah.
really appreciate it. I think, you know, hearing you talk, I think, you know, we recruit a lot of people, right? We're a small business that's growing, and we're always looking at young kids, people of all different ages. And it almost breaks my heart when I see a kid that might be 30 years old comes in and they've got 12 to 13 to 14 different positions on their resume. And the first thing I think of is they're lacking some time. I mean, it's good to get different experiences, but at some point, getting a job every 4 months and then the next job every 4 months, they're missing some North Star in their ambition and their work ethic or something. And what you talked about there, to join something that kind of gives you that, if it resonates with you, it's a great option, I think.
Yeah, and you know, you're doing it as a team. I mean, to the camaraderie and the closeness of a small organization that's all dedicated to a very clear mission with clear values. I mean, I just can't say enough about that. And so you're not lost in the system. Everybody has to work together. I mean, you literally, like on a cutter, everybody is responsible for everybody else. And, you know, life can be dangerous at sea. You know, we were once on our way to Alaska and our main engines caught fire. You know, some fuel connection got loose, and all of a sudden at midnight, we're all up in, you know, in the flash of an alarm. I'm up on the bridge thinking, okay, are we going to get through this fire? Are we going to survive, or are we going to end up in lifeboats? And we were 1,000 miles from the nearest point of land. We were halfway between Hawaii and Alaska. And so you're responsible for every single person around you. And there's you know, that's just a truism. And so it doesn't matter who you are, where you came from, what you believe in, your size, shape, any of that. You know, it's just, you're a shipmate, and you work together as shipmates. And there's something very, very special about that. It's kind of like what you guys do. There's only, what, 8 of you, and you're very small, but you're a committed team. You have a very clear purpose and vision. You're continually seeking improvement. I mean, those are all things that appealed to me when I was looking for somebody to do this work. And thank God I found you, you know, and I didn't have to look anywhere else. Once I saw your Compass Rose page, I was hooked. And then Brian, you know, made it unique and special. And that just says a lot about what you have to offer, which is pretty much anything, it sounds like.
Brian's going to get some flack at the end of this call. He's more patient with you than he is with us.
Oh, I don't particularly like any of you here, so.
Well,
That's why you're sitting in
well,
3 different offices, right?
That's right.
very well
I
said.
will say that I probably have spoken more to Joe over the course of this getting this Compass Rose ready than I have to any of you in any form. We've communicated more than I've talked to you guys on a daily basis.
You know what's funny is when we go through color, and you went through this firsthand, Joe, when we go through colorized line drawings, this goes back and forth, and Brian works with my son Dominic, and he does all this stuff, and the reason
Right.
why he's got the colors, the actual paper colors, versus a computer generated version of light blue. So at some point we get lost in the you know, excuse the cliche, the crossfire of back and forth of designs, and then you actually did something which was, you know, your technical skills, Joe. You actually put it in your patio with the actual papers around it, right?
Yeah,
And that
Yeah,
adds a whole new dimension to it too.
I had to. You know, for me, you know, this is really, really special, and we want to get it right. And it's going to go into a patio that we're creating here at home. But part of that is my wife is very tactile, right? She's hands-on, and she can see and experience textures and colors and things in a way that's different from me. I'm more conceptual and intuitive. I could see this in my head when I first made a phone call to Paverart. It was just the process of getting it to come to life. But part of what happened at home was we would get drawings and renderings, and I would show them to my wife, and we would talk about what worked and what didn't. And so this whole process, we would take away the things that didn't work and keep focusing on what did. And eventually, you know, we got this amazing concept here. I don't think we could have done it any other way. If you had said, well, this is what we offer and you can take it or leave it, I think we would have left it, you know. We weren't going to be, we weren't going to receive what we have if this process of yours didn't work the way it did for us. And I know that doesn't work for everybody necessarily. You guys were incredibly patient. I took up a lot of Brian's time, but he was always patient, good-humored, creative, you know, there's just a lot to be thankful for.
Yeah, appreciate the feedback. It really means a lot.
Yeah.
You know, I think these are kind of, what do you think, Mike? 95% of what we do, it's like a snowflake. There's no two that are alike, and this certainly qualifies. There's nothing that we built that incorporates all the different elements, and then obviously the story behind it, which is unique to you.
Right.
Yeah.
So this piece is certainly special. It really is.
No, everything's different. There's no question about it.
Yeah.
Did we ever at some point show Joe the large piece that we did for the Coast Guard Training Center down in Cape May? I don't know if we ever showed you that. We don't have installed pictures of it, which is ridiculous why we don't, because we can get on the base and it's maybe an hour and 15 minutes away from our plant here.
Yeah.
I was kind of thinking maybe we could show it to him. It's in custom projects, Mark, under there's 4 pictures: Coast Guard 1, 2, 3, and 4. I just pulled them up. They're in there.
I don't even remember that one. What was that one?
That was that massive piece that the piece was so big we couldn't get it into one picture in our shop, because that thing had to be, I don't know, 30 feet across and
Wow.
15 feet high, and it incorporated 2 Coast Guard logos. It was pretty impressive. It was done quite a while ago. I'm surprised we didn't show Joe that. Well, I might be the only one that even remembers it. But it's
No,
there.
I'd love to see it. If we don't get to it now, if you could send it later, that would be awesome.
Oh,
And,
it would be my pleasure.
And so I want to show you something like this. If this logo that's on my vest here, that's from the place where I retired. It's the Coast Guard Chief Petty Officer Academy. And there's a Coast Guard anchor above a book that says Altus Tendo, which is the motto of the Academy, and it's got the name of it around it, and staff, because I was a staff member there. But this is an example of the stuff that I hope that you guys can continue to offer for the Coast Guard. You got a portfolio there. This place is a very special place for the Coast Guard as a whole, for the military as a whole. It's a senior enlisted school out in Petaluma. You could do one of these in their courtyard or on the grounds there. I think it's worthwhile, saying hello and offering that. And if I can help facilitate that, I would love to.
No, that's what you've got on that patch is exactly what we do every day. So
I know, yeah,
that's no problem at all.
yeah,
Yeah, we've got our little niche. We're probably, Mark, wouldn't you say we're probably the only company that does this full time, 5-6 days a week. I don't think there's any other company in the United States that does what we do.
There's people out there that, and this is why I think the engraving piece, Joe, maybe came in a little bit later when Brian, the pavers that you see behind me, the pavers that you're going to get in your piece, these are not painted. So what you do come across a lot in the world is people that will take pavers, they might be gray, and then they'll spray paint or they'll stain blue or whatever color they're trying to get. And they don't cut them, so they do a nice job, but it's paint, right? So it's not a question of if, it's a question of when that thing's going to break down. And we always just shy away from something that's not going to work. It's not going to outlive us as humans. So there are people that do that. Now, the question is, why doesn't everyone use blue colored pavers or yellow or whatever? Why don't they use that color paver? Because it's freaking hard and it's expensive. And I just got off the road 5 days in a Midwestern state looking at another supplier that can do specialized, very unique colors. That's the reason why it's very difficult. The world doesn't want to operate, especially now with manufacturing. They don't want to do 1,000 square feet of anything. They want to do 10,000 square feet. They want to run all along. It's expensive. There's downtime. There's all sorts of reasons why our little niche is hard because of things like this. I can spray paint that blue and we can be in any color in the world. But unfortunately, if you put it in your patio, if we did it that way, it might break down after 3 years, and that's just not acceptable to us. So that's one of the reasons why we're kind of unique.
Well, it showed right away to me when I just Googled, Compass Rose pavers or something like that. And you guys popped up with your Compass Rose page. And man, I spent hours and hours on that. Even as we were going through the design of my Compass Rose, I would spend, just as much time looking at design elements from your past projects that got me inspired and talking to Brian. So all of those things came to be. But I mean, the thing that stood out to me was the quality and the options that were available. It wasn't a template that you just plugged yourself into.
Right.
The only reason
we're ready this thing's ready to go, right, Brian? We just got to package it.
Yeah, Mike wants to take out the center band and package them in a box so that nothing happens to them.
This piece you're talking then, right?
He wants the GP Monterey, all those engraved parts to be in a box. So they got to be taken out so that, because like you said, it takes a little bit longer to engrave. So if something happened to one of those, it would take a little bit longer than we would like it to replace. But I mean, and the only reason the engraving even ever came up was, I think Joe was talking about the bronze centerpiece.
Right.
You didn't quite like it.
No.
Or the price of it was way too ridiculous or something. And you had mentioned engraving. You were looking at engraving locally to try and do something in that center. And that's when I was just like, oh, well, we do that. I'd known that from the beginning. I would have suggested it.
Yeah, that was a huge tipping point. I mean, that closed every other door forever and locked it, that I was trying to resolve this centerpiece idea, the Coast Guard logo. And once we nailed that down, man, the rest was pretty easy. Just coming up with colors. And again, thank you for your patience as we looked at probably every color that you could possibly make.
Yeah.
We do so many compass roses, but it's always nice to do something different with it. I mean, a lot of them are, they're all similar in their own ways, but with different bands and different aspects to it. But
yeah,
putting the stars in, putting the engraved bands in, putting the Coast Guard in the center.
I think
I enjoyed doing it because it was me doing a compass rose that I'm used to doing and then doing something different with it.
well, hey, I'm sorry, Mark. I know your engraving shop is new, from what I understand, that you built it up inside your building.
Mhm.
I would be very pleased if this is a first of a composite work of your art and your engraving. I'd love to see a picture of that just kind of be up there as a what do you call it?
Oh,
The cornerstone. When you lay a building,
Sure.
you engrave the cornerstone. If you want to put a picture up there along with some of the ones that I sent you as a memento of what you're off and running to, then that would be great. But
Yeah,
an even better picture would be a picture of your piece installed with you standing next to it. That would be a great picture to go up there too.
And I'm going to send that to you once it stops raining out here. We have gotten over 4 feet of rain at my house. We've got more rain than Noah had during his time.
Whoa.
And so I am months behind getting things ready for this, but this is a priority for us once it arrives.
Where's it going to go?
It's going to go about 20 feet to my left here, outside between our house and garage. There's going to be a new 2-step patio out there. We've got 2 different levels. And it's going to be kind of the centerpiece of that. If you ask Brian, one of the pictures that I sent him is I went out with little rocks, landscaping rocks, and I created a full-size template with these rocks to show my wife where this would go and the size of it. And I made little cardboard pieces to represent the compass arms. And so I laid it all out with rocks and cardboard as a template so that we could understand where it would go. Is this the right size? What's it going to look like? And so that was part of the fun of this, was the creativity that we had to go through so that everybody could see the same thing. Because we all perceive differently, right? But
sure.
we all were after the same outcome, and that's how it worked for us at home. A lot of work here to match colors, size, designs. It was a fun process.
It warms my heart. I think the challenge that we have, Joe, in all candor, a small business that's busy, right? We're growing, and
Yeah.
we crank out a lot of stuff. Brian runs the shop, and he's doing a million different things. He's planning. We're all putting things together. Which is why I really appreciate you putting together the PDF that you did with your career, and then now telling your story. Because what I'll do is, with your permission, I'll share the Zoom call for us to slow down and stop and say, this is what we're building every day. Sometimes we lose sight of. There's a lot of thought behind this. It signifies a career. All the things that you talked about. I mean, it really adds meaning to what we do. Otherwise, we're here grinding away. We're building beautiful things. We got the word art in our name, but this is really what matters. It's why are we building it? So really appreciate you taking the time to put that together and then jump on the line here with us.
Thank you. Seriously, thank you.
No, thank you. Kudos to everybody, and especially Dominic. He'd get stuff from us and he'd color it overnight and send it back. Man, that was so helpful. And you talk about young kids. I was really impressed by this young man and what he does and how he does it. And I want to give a shout out to him too.
Well, thank you. I'll share those sentiments with him. Thank you.
Yeah.
We can't call him the rookie anymore. He's a bona
Well, he can always be the rookie, or you can call him Rook, or give him a T-shirt with that on it. But Yeah, he's a very competent and capable young guy, and it's impressive to see
He's
that.
exceptional. To be honest with you, he's exceptional. He's very,
Yeah.
very good at what he does. So,
Well, thank you. Look, well, we're in a position, Mike, we were talking, I think you were off, given the fact that a lot of this is engraved, Brian was saying we're going to package these separately. So in case something,
Yep.
to give it a little extra protection on its en route to California.
yeah, we might also want to consider special packaging the rope sections too,
Yep.
especially the small one in the center.
And Joe, just so you understand, Brian, obviously, any of these pieces, Brian's got in the computer. Let's say en route between here and California on its way to your home.
Yeah.
If you see anything wrong, if there's a little crack on any of these pieces, Brian's got it in the computer. We'll, within 24 hours, we'll have it on our deck and recut, and we'll box it up and send it back out. Hopefully that doesn't happen, but if it does, we're not new to that type of thing either.
Well, that was another huge selling point. If you're looking at customer feedback, the opportunity to not only receive something, but to maintain it as it was created forever.
Yep.
That is a huge thing for us. This is going to last forever, and that's a huge selling point.
Yep.
Terrific. Good, good.
Just if you see something, just give us a call, take a picture, and then. But like I said, that hopefully won't happen. But if it does, that'll be fixed. There's no need to panic. We always tell people, you spend all this time on design, all the work that goes into it, and oh my God, the star snapped off over here. Don't panic. Get us a picture. Yeah. You'll see it within 3 days. So.
Well, I promise you that when I get it, I won't ask Brian to change the colors.
Well,
could you put that in writing, please?
Yes.
This color set up here was one of the original ones.
Yeah.
This color, the way this was colored was one of the early on colored setups, which we both agreed we really liked, but you still wanted to see a whole bunch of other ones. But I particularly like the dark blue with the light blue around it. I think it originally, maybe not the red, I think it had gray granite in it or something else. But yeah, this was the good, this was the one.
Yeah, and just, I know we're running out of time, but I just want to say another thing about Brian. Like you were talking about how you have a color and it's hard to see in a rendering and a drawing versus the actual paver color. But that was so critical for us, is to get it right. And let's see, I lost this thought for a minute. But it was just about refining the color. And gosh, I'm not saying this well. There was a point that I wanted to make that was really important.
Well, you might be going down the accuracy of the drawing, maybe.
No, the accuracy of the drawing. This looks exactly like the drawing.
Oh, good.
I mean, that part, it is exactly like the drawing. That's amazing. The detail is exceptional. But sorry, I'm 65 years old and my brain shuts off sometimes. But there was a thing that was really critical in terms of the color and the iterative process of going back and forth with comparing the drawing colors to other projects that you had done in the past. I mean, I kept going back and forth at some point with Brian, like this blue that you're talking about, this dark blue or this light blue, looks different in these different pictures. And which one is it really? And that was incredibly helpful for us to get the confidence that what we were going to get was exactly what we intended to get. And that's true for us. And that's one of the things that's very satisfying. But the back and forth was really, really critical to giving us that confidence that we were all on the right track.
It's, pavers are hard, or concrete in general. And you'll notice the moment you put water to this, it's going to look completely different. So I'm still amazed to this day when we take pictures. A lot of our website photos are after we clean them. They get filthy muddy when we're doing them. So we got to clean it, and then we take the picture right after it. And if this was wet, it would look multiple shades darker, and then it dries and it looks like this. So on our website, we've got a combination of, we tried it, but we got to direct people and we got to take the time to do it. We've got installed photos, which are typically dry. We've got the main part of the photos, which are typically wet. And then we've got videos, which give it a totally different perspective. So you're right. I mean, taking the time to really understand what it is that you're looking at, under what condition, and then natural sunlight also. And then you got computer screens that can distort things too. So it really is challenging when you're looking at colors and what's it really going to look at. Our goal with the simulation is not to be perfect, but give you a pretty good representation of what you're going to receive. So I bet if we were to put the color drawing of this next to it, it would look pretty similar. What's our goal?
More than similar. It looks identical.
Good. That's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
That's great. So we try and do our best to kind of undersell the line drawing. It's going to be, we kind of say, yeah, it's going to be pretty close, but the fact that you said identical, that's great. That's music to our ears.
Well, I hope give Brian a new coffee cup or something to reward him, because he nailed this for us. He was just a pleasure to work with, as was everybody. We're very, very, very satisfied, and we're very excited to see it arrive. And we're like new parents, expecting a new baby here.
Look, that's great. We
Yeah.
can't wait to see the photo installed. We'll start the process of packaging it, and then we'll get it on the road.
It'll have a whole different impact when you see it up close and personal. The size will hit you, the colors will hit you again. It's what we call the wow factor. When you see this live, as opposed to seeing it in this photo, it will move you. It really will.
Well, once we get it installed, the door is always open, the light's always on. When you're out on the West Coast, you can come and see it in person.
We'd love to.
Well,
All right, Joe, listen, thanks again for all your time. And then we'll be in touch here as we get this thing packaged and ready to go.
Absolutely, guys. Thank you so much. And if you need any more information from me, I'm around. So anytime.